Acquiring Owen Caissie has the potential to be one of the best moves the Marlins have ever made.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I'm a diehard Marlins fan, and I've podcasted about the team for the last 4 seasons. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow wherever you get your podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. On today's show, I'm going to tell you why I think this Owen Caissie trade has the potential to be one of the best moves the Marlins have ever made. This trade could solidify Peter Bendix's legacy in Miami. This trade could bring Miami a World Series championship one day, certainly aid in the process of getting that 3rd World Series trophy. I'm super excited for Owen Caissie. And the plan is to play right field. Very likely, he's going to break camp with the Marlins. He's major league ready. He's done everything in AAA. There's nothing left to prove there. There's no more seasoning he needs. Now it's about adjusting to the major league level and getting into a groove and playing up to his potential. And I believe he can do it. I believe that Owen Caissie can be not just a star, but a superstar. And I want to read you a quote from Harold Reynolds, former MLB player and current analyst on MLB Network. He said that Caissie reminds me so much of Tucker. The way that we're talking about Tucker, Kyle Tucker, that is. This guy is going to grow into that. I just want you to look at the swings and the similarity of going opposite field power in Wrigley, opposite way. It's the swing and the different things he can do. When you start thinking about Kyle Tucker, and if you follow as long as we have in his days in Houston, Caissie is ahead of Tucker, I think, in his development. He's going to grow into being this player. And if Harold Reynolds is right, if that's the type of player that Caissie develops into, then this trade is franchise altering. Caissie is going to be a superstar. And you pair that with Kyle Stowers, who established himself in 2025 as being a legitimate star, as being a legitimate cornerstone player. Jacob Marcy in center field, who had a great rookie campaign. And I'm sure is excited to get back out there for an entire season and showcase what he can do. I view Jacob Marcy as a 5-tool player. He has speed. He's got a good glove, power, hit tool. Marcy's the real deal. And you add Caissie into the mix, in a couple of years, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that this Marlins outfield is among the best in baseball and is viewed as such from the national media. Caissie is that type of player. There's some room to improve, no doubt. He's not a finished product. One of the main concerns with Caissie is his ability to hit secondaries. If you look at, his contact rates, the whiff percentage against sliders and curveballs, for example, it's not the best. 42.75%, 43% of the time, he's whiffing against sliders last season in AAA. Whiffed 39% of the time against curves. That has to improve. The top of the zone, up and away, up and in. Gotta be able to lay off the high heat. Be selective with his pitches. The in-zone contact rate, a little bit not concerning, but an area to improve upon. His zone contact percentage last season, 83%, slightly below average. But when it's all said and done, and you look at the profile of Caissie and what he can bring to a franchise, how could you not be excited? How could you not be pumped up? He can be the face of the franchise. He can be this generation's Giancarlo Stanton. Not the same level of power, maybe, or the same, type of player, but that face of the franchise. You go to Marlins Park to watch Giancarlo Stanton back in the day. You go to Marlins Park, Lone Depot Park, and go watch Owen Caissie, Kyle Stowers, Augustine Ramirez, the young core that the Marlins are building, specifically the young offensive core in this lineup. I think this team can compete in 2026. And if they do, Caissie's going to be part of that. They're going to give him every opportunity available to be that kind of player, to be that franchise cornerstone. And this is a player that they've coveted going back to last season at the trade deadline. There were rumors. I remember with Luzardo, or not Luzardo, with Cabrera, with Sandy a season ago. Luzardo, of course, was dealt last offseason. And it was almost the complete opposite of this trade. The headliner in the Luzardo deal was a single A, 18, 19-year-old kid who's got a ton of potential. Starlin Caba, ton of potential, but he was years away. Now you fast forward to the Edward Cabrera trade, it's a night and day difference. You're still trading away a really talented arm. And Cabrera could go on to do great things for the Cubs. He has 3 more years of control. If you're the Marlins, you didn't need to trade him. There wasn't a necessity. He wasn't a rental. He's not about to hit free agency and command, a $150 million contract or money that you're not going to pay. So you trade him off. That wasn't the case. The only reason you traded Edward Cabrera is, number one, you like what you saw in the return. Number two, the injury risk. So there is a couple of reasons that factored into this decision. But Caissie being included in the package, being the number one Chicago Cubs prospect coming over to Miami, if you follow Pipeline, he's currently ranked the 3rd prospect in the Marlins system. Personally, I have him only behind Thomas White. I think he's a better prospect than Iva Arquette right now because I just haven't seen Iva Arquette play enough baseball. And if Arquette pans out, oh my goodness. Now we're talking about a legitimate lineup that is going to strike fear in opposing pitchers' hearts when everybody comes up, when Arquette makes his debut, when Augustine is in his prime, Stowers still slugging away, Caissie. That's the X factor. A franchise-type player if he plays to his potential. And again, that's baseball, right? It's an if. It's always projections. There has to be tangible results, without a doubt, because I could sit here and talk to you about Caissie's talent and say, Harold Reynolds is comparing him to Kyle Tucker. He could be that type of player, but we're going to have to see it pan out. We're going to have to see him take his lumps, make his adjustments. There's a lot of faith in this coaching staff, in this front office, that he's going to be able to make the necessary adjustments to succeed, and not just succeed, but thrive at the major league level. And if he does so, and Pedro Guerrero, the hitting coach, you have manager Clayton McCullough, Gabe Kapler is the general manager, all the player development systems and resources that this organization has invested in. If that pays off, you're going to have a star. You're going to have a player that's going to be an all-star caliber level of player for years to come. And that fires me up. I cannot wait. Coming up next, I'm going to move to the rotation, specifically Braxton Garrett. The return of Braxton Garrett, what should we expect? Is he a name that a lot of us are just overlooking? First, this episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, on every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. You're going to see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like the most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. And remember, divisional round, wild card round, there's a wild card game tonight, Monday. You're going to have divisional Saturday and Sunday. So multiple days you can open up your profit boost packs and let you lean into your instinct, whatever you're feeling, whether it's defense, it's quarterback play, just simply momentum. You have a hunch that this team is going to get it done. The boosts give you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet on something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way as well. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Hey, real quick, I wanted to talk to you about the Everydayer Club. Okay, so we have a Discord channel. If you join the Everydayer Club, and you can in the show notes down below, there's a Discord channel, a big group chat that I'd like to start seeing more people involved in, where we can just talk about the Marlins all season long. As we head into spring training in a couple of months, it'll be really fun. So if that's something you're interested in, for just $5 a month or $50 a year, you can sign up. Use the link again in the show notes to learn more. But we're going to have a group chat on Discord, so something to keep in mind. And of course, I appreciate all my Everydayers out there. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the show. Leave a like. We're continuing to build the show, bigger and better things. I cannot wait for this season, guys. I'm super pumped. Baseball can't come soon enough. I had a rough sports weekend, let me tell you. If you guys know me on Twitter, you'll know that I'm a University of Oregon student. I'm a Chargers fan, and could not have gone worse. So I'm ready for baseball. Cannot wait. Nothing like it. Nothing like opening day. Nothing like spring training. So I hope you guys are as excited as I am, because this offseason, I'm ready for it to end. Braxton Garrett. Let's talk about Brax. Because to me, when I look at this rotation, and now you have to subtract Edward Cabrera. He's no longer with the Marlins organization. Braxton Garrett could absolutely be essential for the Marlins rotation success in 2026. There's a big question mark in the back half of that rotation. The big three no longer exists. It was Sandy Alcantara, Edward Cabrera, Yuri Perez. Take out Cabrera. Now it's Sandy, Yuri. Who else? Who else is going to fill that void left by Cabrera? Jansen Junk is somebody who I have penciled in as a rotation option, someone who I believe has earned a spot in the Marlins rotation based on his performance from last year. And Braxton Garrett I have as a wild card, because we haven't seen Garrett pitch since the summer of 2024. We haven't seen Garrett have consistent success since 2023, which feels like a lifetime ago when you look at where the Marlins were then and where they are now as an organization. Completely different front office, completely different manager, a completely different vibe from 2023 to now 2026. Garrett missed all of last season. Again, a huge chunk of 2024 he missed. And now, as we approach spring training, the question is, does Garrett have enough gas left in the tank? Is there still something there in that left arm for him to give the rotation valuable innings next season? When you have a major surgery like that, like Garrett did on the elbow, that's an unknown. And that's something that the organization knows, and they're going to take into consideration. His recovery process, they took their time. They didn't rush him back. There was a TV interview during one of the games at some point late last year. I believe he was in the booth, and he was saying he felt great. He felt good this offseason. There's going to be no limitations, and that's a good sign. heading into spring training. But here's the thing is when you have been away from game action for so long, naturally there's going to be an adjustment period. And the wild card is that if Garrett comes back and doesn't have those struggles that we saw from like Sandy Alcantara a year ago, and he just gets back to what he does best, which is control and get a bunch of ground balls, then you're going to have a legit pitcher who can be an anchor for you that you can lean upon in 2026. His profile is pretty simple. Okay, against left-handers, he's going to throw, he throws a lot of pitches, but against left-handers, same side hitters, he's going to throw his sinker, he's going to throw his slider the majority of the time. And again, against righties, he's still going to throw that sinker, throw that slider, but he's also going to mix in that cutter a little bit more as well at about 22% of the time. He also throws a curveball and a changeup, but that go-to pitch that he throws is the sinker, the slider, and then against right-handers, the cutter. And he gets above average ground ball rates, and he gets a lot of chase. That's the type of pitcher that Braxton Garrett has developed into. Remember, Garrett was a former first-round pick out of an Alabama high school, I think 2016. I may be wrong on the year, but it's been a while ago. It's pushing a decade for sure. And he was a first-round pick. The big pitch that he threw during his prep days was the curveball, had elite spin, and it got a lot of scouts to fall in love with Garrett as a potential starting pitcher down the road. He forgoes college, signs with the Marlins, and you fast forward a couple of years, he finally makes his major league debut. He profiled more of a back-end starter, a mid reliever, kind of a spot start guy who was never going to be solidified into the rotation. And then in 2023, it all clicked for him. If you go back and you look at Garrett's numbers from that 2023 season, I guarantee you're going to be amazed. And a lot of you have probably forgotten just how effective he was in that playoff run. He made 30 starts, okay? Pitched 159 and 2/3, struck out 156, accumulated a 4.3 B-WAR, and had an ERA of 3.66. That's a really good season. That's a reliable starting pitcher. And if Garrett gets back to that version of himself, where you don't really need the velocity. You can sit 92, 93, 94, but you have the command and the secondary still have that type of bite and dive on the slider. You're getting those swings and misses. Garrett's going to be somebody that the Marlins will rely on. I haven't heard his name be talked about a lot this offseason, and that's why I'm doing this right now. Because Max Meyer, when I look at the fifth starter in the Marlins rotation and I see Max Meyer penciled in as that 4 or 5 and Garrett's name isn't on the list, I get confused. And I say, this is not what I would do. Because Garrett and Junk have the inside track at a rotation spot over someone like Max Meyer. I think Garrett's ceiling is higher than Max Meyer's because we've already seen what he can do. He's a really good pitcher when he's at his best. The X factor, of course, is the injury risk. He's coming off of an injury. He's coming off of missing an entire season. He's missed a season and a half, and that's why it's such a wild card. But look for this Marlins rotation at some point. Yes, we're going to see Robbie Snelling. We might see Thomas White. But even if you take Cabrera out of the picture, the existing options that the Marlins have, they're really not that bad at all. Sandy, Yuri, Ryan Weathers, he's got to stay healthy. But Weathers, love him. I think he can be a stud. Just has to stay healthy. And then Braxton Garrett, Jansen Junk, that's still a really good starting 5. Max Meyer, Ryan Gusto, they're on the outside looking in. Gusto's somebody who also has pitched a lot for not the Marlins, but the Astros a season ago. I think he made 14 starts at the major league level, made just a couple with the Marlins, and was just fine-tuning his craft in AAA. And maybe Garrett starts the season off in AAA and gets his feet wet, gets his, gathers his stuff and feels it out where he's on the mound, he's in a game, and he can work out the flaws, get back to game speed, and then he makes his 2026 debut for the Marlins. Maybe that's the case. But I still feel good about this rotation, and I would feel even better if Garrett comes back and pitches close to that 2023 level, which can be done. It's a simple approach. If you can command the strike zone and you have good secondary pitches and you have command over them, you know when to throw the slider, you know how to pitch instead of just throw, you're going to have a successful career. So don't close the book on Braxton Garrett. Don't think he's just a feel-good story coming back from injury. No, he's a legitimate threat to succeed in this rotation and help this Marlins team compete in 2026. Another part of this organization that has to be better, that has to provide consistency next season if the Marlins want to compete, is the bullpen. And the Marlins haven't really done a lot to improve the bullpen. So I'm going to discuss the state of the pen, the different relief pitchers, and what I expect from them next season right after this. Do me a favor, hit subscribe if you haven't already on the show. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Of course, you can always leave a mailbag question. Tag me on Twitter at Jeremiah Geiger 2. DM me. Leave them in the comments. I go through the YouTube comments. So if you want your voice heard on the show, you have a specific question, let me know, and we'll answer it on Locked On Marlins. The Marlins bullpen really hasn't seen any changes apart from a big-time injury and a big-time addition. That was it. There hasn't been a flurry of moves. There hasn't been a shakeup. You're going to see the majority of the bullpen look more of the same. And there's a couple of things that I specifically want to focus on. Number one, how does the departure of Ronnie Enriquez affect the late innings for the Fish? Does Peter Fairbanks just come in and take over Enriquez's role on the team and it kind of cancels itself out? Or is the lack of Enriquez's presence in the pen going to be more heavily felt? That's question number one. Question number two, going back to Fairbanks, how effective will he be? Because so many times in my life, I've seen a signing or a trade acquisition blow up in the Marlins' faces. And it just doesn't work out. I go back to 2017, 2018, Junichi Tazawa. Remember Tazawa from the Red Sox? Signed a multi-year deal. I think it was a 2-year deal with the Fish, and it was a complete disaster. Could not get outs. Could not, just was inept out of the bullpen. And that was the Marlins' investment into their, into their rotation, into their bullpen, was adding Tazawa, adding Brad Ziegler, who at that point was really at the back end of his career. But Tazawa, he had been a workhorse for the Boston Red Sox the last couple of seasons. He had pitched 61 games, 53 games, and then he comes to Miami and it all just falls apart. Still pitched in 55 games, but had an ERA approaching 6. Yeah, that was a disaster. Does Pete Fairbanks improve upon his time in Tampa Bay? Or will Tampa Bay not regret letting him go? Because remember, Miami just signed him to a 1-year deal. There's no long-term commitment here. And if they like what they see, maybe they give him another contract. Maybe he wants to stick around in Miami. But the worst-case scenario for the Marlins and 2026 and their chances to compete is you have Enriquez who's gone, who's going to miss the entire season. And then you have Pete Fairbanks just not show up in the big moments because that's what they brought him in for, right? he's brought in to be the primary closer. He's going to be pitching in high leverage spots. And they're going to need him even more now that Enriquez is done. And that's why it's so crucial that he gets it done, that he proves to be worth the $11 million they spent on him. I think he also has a incentive built into his contract, a $1 million incentive if he gets traded. I found that funny because, number one, I want to see Fairbanks finish the year on the Marlins, because that would mean the Marlins are competing deep into September, October. So hopefully that doesn't come to fruition. Now, the rest of the bullpen, you have Lake Bacher. Again, former waiver claim, came out of nowhere, pitched well last season. Got some high leverage opportunities. Anthony Bender, he's going to be back. Missed the back half with an injury. But when Bender's on and he's thrown that sweeper, he's as lethal as it comes. He's going to get swings and misses. He's going to be an 8th inning guy, a 9th inning guy if Fairbanks can't go. He can be relied upon. Calvin Fauché, to me, is an interesting case because overall the numbers for Fauché looked pretty decent a season ago. He actually led the team with 15 saves. It wasn't Enriquez, it was Fauché. 60 1/3 innings, 59 strikeouts, an ERA of 3.28. But too often at times, it felt like Fauché was in real high stressful situations. I still think that he's a talented pitcher, throws a really hard cutter, and has good stuff. But if he can command his pitches all the way across the board, Fauché will be a weapon. So you'll have Fauché, you'll have Bender, you'll have Fairbanks, Lake Bacher, and then you're going to have Tyler Phillips. Tyler Phillips, what he lacks for in pure stuff, he makes up for in his just demeanor and his attitude on the mound. Absolute bulldog. He's a killer out there. Wants the ball in the 9th inning. Wants to shut down an opposing lineup when he gets his name called. So Phillips, how much of a role does he play on the 2026 Marlins? These are all questions that have to be answered, and to be honest, they have to be answered successfully. These guys cannot bust. They can't show up in 2026 and just get rocked. If the Marlins want to compete, they're going to need good years out of all those pitchers I just mentioned. Because behind them, who else do you really have? On the 40-man roster, Andrew Nardi, who didn't really look impressive in 2024 and missed all of 2025. Maybe there's something there. Josh Simpson, he's still hanging around, but could not have gone any worse a season ago. Michael Peterson throws hard, but inconsistent results so far in the major leagues. And then I look at the minor league level. A big name to watch for is Josh White. Josh White and Nigel Belgrave. Josh White, somebody who I think could have made his debut a season ago. They didn't call him up. Does he break the team out of camp this season? Does he put on a clinic in spring training? How does he look? How does Nigel Belgrave look this season? Does he get a call? Because the Marlins, of course, the organizational philosophy is a constant churning, a constant replenishing throughout the minor league system into the major leagues as well. You're going to have guys that struggle. You're going to have guys who get hurt. How do you replace the production? And for the Marlins bullpen, it was a target that they wanted to emphasize this offseason. I don't think they really have. And maybe something changes in the next couple of weeks and they make a couple of more additions. But they're going to need to rely upon the same 4 or 5 guys every night if they want to compete. Can it be done? Sure. But you have to factor in injury risks. You have to account for somebody just falling apart, getting the yips, getting hurt. There's a lot of things that go into a 162 game season. And I would have liked to see this Marlins team at least up into this point address the bullpen in a more significant manner. I like that they got Fairbanks. I want them to still be active. I want them to get another arm or two. We're going to wrap it up right here, guys. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to the show. Of course, remember the Locked On Everydayer Club today. Links down in the show notes. $5 a month, $50 a year. And until next time, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.